Welcome to Wellbeing Wednesdays. I'm your host, Harbinder Narula, and every week we bring to you the voices and ideas that help you reclaim your health, your happiness, and inner balance. My guest today is someone whose work beautifully bridges ancient wisdom with modern living. I have with me Nidhi Bansali Pandya. Nidhi is an Ayurvedic practitioner and the author of a widely appreciated book, Your Body Already Knows, a practical guide to resetting your gut, the sleep, and mood. So, if you're feeling fatigued, if you're feeling bloated, or simply disconnected from your body, today's conversation might just be the reset your life needs. Let's speak to Nidhi Banshali Pandya on Wellbeing Wednesdays with Harbinder Narula. Nidhi, welcome to Wellbeing Wednesdays with Harbinder Narula, which is a part of BW Wellbeing World. Uh, I know you're in New York. Thank you so much for joining us early in the morning. I know it's not too early for you, keeping in mind the US standards, but for Indian standards, 8:30 in the morning is early. Uh,
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Nidhi, let's begin with the beginning. Uh, you come from a lineage of Ayurvedic healers. I mean, I know your grandfather was a Ayurvedic, and but what really drew you into making Ayurveda your life's work?
The funny part is you don't choose Ayurveda, Ayurveda chooses you. It is a deep, strong pull. It's an invitation. I am quite certain that it is something that I've carried in my soul for lifetimes, and that's why I was born into this family. And so Dadaji, my Dadaji was an Ayurvedic healer. And I lived in a large joint family, 14 people. In India, that's not uncommon. We know that in the US, people are like, oh, wow, you lived in a large joint family like that. But I was very sensitive. I was very curious. And anytime somebody got me anything from the Shastra, whether my father gave me Bhaj Govindam when I was 8 or 9, I was just, something happened when I saw those Sanskrit words as a child. And I didn't really know at that point what was happening. But I know that I lost sense of time and space. That's when I forgot everything in the 3D world. And I also became very curious about what I joke as what makes people sick and what makes people tick. So when you're living in a large joint family and you have so many people responding differently to the same stimulus, like with my sisters, I would say we would go out to the sun and Ruchi would have a reaction, but I wouldn't. And then I would see my sister Shubha Jiji, she would pick colds if we went and had the same ice cream at Dollops in Bombay. And so it was such a different, everybody's bodies responded differently, everybody's minds responded differently. We were all reprimanded, let's say, for the same mischief, but we all responded differently. And then I heard my grandfather talking about, oh, Ruchi, you be careful, your body gets heated up. Or I talked, or mom would say, Nidhi, come back before the bats come into the sky, come back to from the playground. So what I didn't realize at that point is that subconsciously I'm learning about these patterns, behavior, and rhythms of the world in my ecosystem and around me. Right. So it was very natural for me. I was very sensitive. I was constantly doing that. Like my friends joked I was a social scientist. Then I didn't have a choice. It's like I say, Ayurveda just calls you, it pulls you in. And I didn't realize, but as I became an adult, I realized that how much well-being and this wisdom that was passed on to me for free was such a deep part of who I was and who I am. And at that point, honestly, I was moving to the US and Ayurveda was not even a thing. Like nobody knew what Ayurveda was. So I remember mom telling me that, why are you studying Ayurveda? Nobody is really going to care about this. And I said, Mom, I don't have a choice. And I want to make sure that I am thinking of Ayurveda. I believed this, and it may sound naive at this point. I said that I want to carry Ayurveda in every cell of my body, in every thought, in my consciousness for the entire lifetime. So when I die in this life and I'm reborn, and I believe all of this, I'm reborn, I don't have to wait 20 years to realize that this is what I need. Like I'm born knowing that this is what I want.
How old were you at that time when you were making this choice?
it began when I was 18, but I made the conscious, like, this is it choice when I must have been 22, 23.
Okay.
Yeah. So exactly about 20 years, I'm 43 now. So exactly about 20 years ago, I was like, I don't have a choice. And I already started studying at that point. But with the question, where everybody else questioned, I did question that what are you going to do with it? Because you get sucked in. You don't know. It doesn't matter what you're going to do with it. Ayurveda creates the path for you.
Right. Right.
And so that's how it worked.
But tell me one thing, did you study Sanskrit as a language? Because I'll tell you the reason I'm asking you this is because during COVID, we started looking at scriptures. I have never studied scriptures, etc. But
Yeah.
since we had the time, the family was reuniting on Zoom. So we said, let's understand what our scriptures say. And that is a time I realized one thing which was very, very powerful, that what we had been reading in books were all interpretations of someone. So until you knew the literal meaning of the word that was there in every sentence, you could be misled into believing something which may not be what was intended to be said. So did you learn Sanskrit to understand what the scriptures were saying?
So, firstly, you're 100% right. Everything is lost in translation. And that's why I refuse to study from any Ayurvedic textbook. I have never studied from any Ayurvedic textbook. So, do I know Sanskrit fluently? Like, can I? My Dadaji spoke Sanskrit like a first language. He went to a hostel where Sanskrit was the medium of instruction, right? But can I speak Sanskrit like this? I cannot speak Sanskrit like this. I was we were trained in Sanskrit grammar. I was trained to try and understand those words. But I still, even today, and I will read my sutras regularly, but I will have to break it down very, very slowly. I will have to look at the declensions. I will have to sometimes look at various interpretations and then go back. But I'll tell you where the magic lies is never in reading the individual sutra. It's not. It is, so, we have these texts. We have Sutra Sthan, and then we have Sharira Sthan and Nidan Sthan. So they're like volumes and volumes, okay, of any Ayurvedic Acharya has written volumes. But the first book, the Sutra Sthan, is always the framework. It's the skeleton of the principles. So there are no prescriptions really, not much. At least the first 13 chapters of the Ashtanga Hridayam, there are no principles. They just teach you, for example, they tell you morning, is kafakal, your body gets sluggish. This is, ahoratri. So like they'll give you an example of what happens in the morning, what happens in the evening in your body, what happens is similar to what happens in the three phases of the night, is similar to what happens in three phases of the digestion. It's similar to what happens in three phases of the seasons. It'll just tell you this. Then there will be another chapter in the same text or in another text, which will actually tell you what is happening in that season. And then there will be a third text or another chapter somewhere which will tell you what do you consume to counteract those gunas. So the way the texts are written is tremendous. It's very detailed. It can feel like code, but it is precise. There's no second guessing. And it's the magic is not in ever reading an independent sutra. If somebody presents to you an independent sutra and says, this is what Ayurveda says, don't believe them. Because I will tell you, it will contextualize every sutra if you've read more than one text. And it will tell you that this sutra that was mentioned there, but has these exceptions for this person at this time in this manner. And it's like, it is very, very detailed and precise. So the joy is, yes, it's in reading the Sanskrit. I am just attracted to Sanskrit. And it's just in such short words, they can say so many things. And sometimes there's the choice of word, right? For example, I want to tell you that oil is taila, right? We know it as taila. But there are certain places that the word for oil will be sneha. So sneha also means oil, but the acharyas have chosen the words to denote a deeper meaning at times. That, for example, Amalaki is also known as Dhatri. Dhatri means mother. Sneha means love. So when that oil has this kind of self-loving impact on your body, you will use it as sneha. When it's used in a massage, the same oil will be called sneha. When it is used in a medicine, it will be called taila.
So it's based on the purpose with which it is being used. What is
Exactly.
the intention, creating an intention and purpose to what you're doing?
Yes, and you can, and there's no way English can ever do that. I'm sorry. Yesterday I was discussing, and I want to talk about Dhatri as well. Dhatri Amalaki is also known as Dhatri, which means mother. So whenever you're using Dhatri for that softer, kinder impact in the body,
Uh-huh.
you'll see that it's mentioned as Dhatri and not Amalaki. I mean, it's a mind-blowing science. And I was just discussing cases with one of my colleagues yesterday. We meet every now and then, we discuss cases. And we were both in the US, and I was showing her case paper, and everything was still written in Sanskrit in my case papers. And she's like, Nidhi, how can you write this in Sanskrit? I mean, not in Devanagari, in English Sanskrit. She's like, how can you write these words, koshta and, kamitva, etc., and then talk to your patient clients in English? I said, I can't. Sanskrit is an experience. English is a language.
Right. Uh, so, Nidhi, you just recently wrote a book, which is called Your Body Already Knows. In fact, I have a copy with me right now. Uh, was there a turning point in your personal or professional journey that sparked the idea of putting this book together?
So I would say that a writer lives in me always. I've always like, I think I must have been four, and there's no doubt that I'm going to write something at some point. It's very natural to me to write. But this is just how I am. I let things get invited into my life. I let them happen. I don't actually go and do things. But I would say the idea of this concept of your body already knows, which by the way is fully Sanskrit and jargon free, happened because when I started practicing Ayurveda, I realized that it was so academic, prescriptive, and scary. It had just become information, and the wisdom had been lost, right? So you're looking at people outside, listening to what everybody around you has to say, completely disconnected from what we know. At the same time, Ayurveda says that the first cause of disease is pradnya apradha, loss of wisdom. When you lose your wisdom, you get sick. And then when you look at animals around us and we see that deer wake up and they know that they need to graze. Like they don't wake up and say, whoa, let me look at the new TikTok trend. What should I be eating today? Right. And tigers will not get carried away at a 5 a.m. study they'll wake up, they'll be nocturnals. And nursing mammals will pick specific plants which will increase milk production. And bruised animals will know exactly which soil is sulfur rich and roll their bodies in it. So every species carries wisdom. At birth, we knew to drink from our mother. We had never used our mouth before in the womb. So that being said, and I said, okay, this is why we're so sick. And here I can write a book and I can tell people, oh, do this. If you have a cold, do this. If you have a stomachache, do this. If, I could make myself sound super intelligent and use all of this jargon and give people more information. But then I'm not being the vessel for Ayurveda. Being the vessel for Ayurveda meant I help people to reconnect with their own rhythms and instincts. So actually, a publisher approached me to write a book. And I said, I refuse to write a book which is prescriptive. They said, can you write an Ayurvedic book for the young audiences? And I said, the only book that I can write is the first book that I can write. And I definitely would want to write more books, which may be more specific. But I said, the first book that I want to put out there is teaching people a way to reconnect with what is already ours. And that just as it was brewing in my mind, and the publisher reached out, and I just think it fell organically. So that's just how my life happens. Everything it's a flow. It does not, unfortunately, happen. Like, I'm not a planner. I'm not very outcome oriented. I just wait for it to, manifest outside in the world and hold my intention inside. So I would say it was a lovely, seamless process. And the book was a result of the journey that I had lived with Ayurveda.
Nidhi, do you have any regrets in life?
I don't know if there are regrets in life. And I've lived in the past with thinking of regrets and said, oh, I wish I had not moved to the US. But I think, like, I'm in my 40s now and I have two teenage daughters. And I think I'm at a point where I feel like Oh, like you realize at some point, right? Like not only everything happens for a reason, the patterns that repeat themselves in your life are only here for you to break.
Well,
And what's not a pattern is something preordained, an opportunity. What's not a pattern is an opportunity. And if it is a pattern, then you work on it.
the reason I asked you this is because typically people who believe in going with the flow, believing that, it is either universe's purpose being bestowed on you or the need, generally people do not have the regrets because they're like, what's the big deal? I mean, I was just going with whatever was presented to me in front of me. Uh, Nidhi, the title of your book, I found it very intriguing. Uh, your body already knows. For someone who's typically feeling out of sync or is constantly trying to chase external fixes for whatever is happening inside of them, what does that mean? What does the title mean to these kind of people?
Yeah. It's to them, I would say it's an aspiration to them. I will acknowledge that you're far away from that because you're disconnected probably with your body. It is an aspiration. It is possible to get there. But to listen to our body in the middle of noise, it's almost impossible. So hopefully, this is an invitation for them to say that one day this is the language that I'm going to learn. And if you find my book, hopefully this is the start that you can give it. I definitely want to say that your body already doesn't, your body already knows does not mean, oh, my body wants 3 packets of chips or my body wants to stay up at night. That is your body coping with noise. If when you are not in a state of equilibrium or steadiness, and what your body asks for at that point is not what it deeply needs to hear. It's what you need to just is what you think you need to just get by. So yeah, for somebody who's constantly running, also it means that it is possible. Once you learn to speak the language of the body, you automatically find steadiness. Once you get back into this rhythm and patterns, you create a coherence in the order of your life, which feels so grounding.
Uh, in your book, you're proposing that the gut, the sleep, and the mood, three of the most complex issues today that people are facing, can be reset in just 21 days, right? That sounds like radical because, and when you're talking about Ayurveda, how does Ayurveda approach this differently from Western medicine or even the modern wellness trends? Because typically when we are looking at quick fixes, it comes from the modern way of living, modern medicine, etc., and everybody feels that traditional sciences are very, very slow.
I love that question, actually. Nobody's ever asked me that. It's such a great question that because I've put 21 days and our belief is that traditional sciences are so slow. So I'll say when I talk about 21 days resetting your gut sleep, what I'm saying is that in 21 days, you should be able to see a significant difference in the patterns. So for example, if you have IBS, I'm not saying 21 days your IBS is going to go away or leaky gut is going to go away. But what you're going to start seeing is that there's a predictability that has been established. There is an ease that has been established. If your sleep is all over the place, you'll start noticing that your body is now sleeping at certain times, it's sleeping deeper, it's sleeping better. So the promise is that if you go back into this cadence that was meant to be, you will start finding and receiving and experiencing that order that is meant for the body because the body loves a clock. And now, when you talk about Ayurveda's approach and it being different from Western medicine, right? Yes, sometimes. See, when you follow the approach of targeting specific problems, Ayurveda can sometimes feel very, very slow, which means that say, hey, I have broken a bone or I have bruised something or I have a lot of acidity and I want to feel better. Yes, you take an antacid, you take a strong antacid, you'll feel better right away. And if you take Ayurveda, you'll have to change how you eat, you'll have to wait for 3 days and all of that. So, yes, in a very acute time, in a very short period, I would say that the modern medicine will trump instantly. However, when you look at a period of time, and we all know this, right? Okay, I'm going to use the example of a headache and acidity. Headache and acidity, I took my Ayurvedic, I made some shifts, nothing happened. They told me not to eat tomatoes. They said, oh, drink this, have amla and sugar, nothing happened. But I had an antacid and I felt better. Okay, great. Now next day you go again have that rasam, again have that pav bhaji. Again, you've aggravated it. In 3 days, you're back to that headache, you're back taking that antacid. In another 5 days, you're back to that acid, again taking that antacid. 20th day, you probably have vomiting symptoms, and then you take a vomiting medication, which kind of pushes the toxins deeper into your tissue. So, short term, you feel better. Long term, kind of shutting up symptoms can create a deeper pathology. In Ayurveda, in the beginning, because you're carefully unfolding the causes of the disease and you're gradually healing them, instantly it will take a little bit longer to feel better. But what you're doing is you're eliminating the problem so it doesn't show up in different places and it doesn't show up repeatedly and consistently. And we all know that today, one of the major causes of disease, of illness, is chronic conditions, what we call lifestyle disorders more in India. And in the US, we call that chronic conditions. So when you are just chronically sick, this is what you're dealing with. You've probably said shut up to your symptoms several times because they seem minor till they've become a full-blown imbalance in your body. So Ayurveda will always work at the root of the problem. It will say, nah, I'm going to fix it. It's like also the difference is, oh, my room is dark. Like let's say the electricity power switch is gone in your house. And now you're lighting candles in every room versus saying, I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to fix this electric box. I'm going to fix all the wires and I'm going to turn it on. So every room is lit up all at the same time.
You know, yeah, it's very interesting because during the conversation, this was the second time you brought up that, you need to listen to your body, because the fact that you're saying that, symptoms show up, but we don't recognize, we don't listen to them. Uh, how can we bring in consciousness to listen to our bodies better? Because, you say that what are the signs that one could be mindful of uh, so that we could understand that our body is telling us to either slow down or take care or giving us the warning signs? I don't know. I mean, how do we listen to our body?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, I mean, we are very far from our instinct. So the journey back to the instinct is a framework I offer in the book. But let's just say at the top, where do you start, right? So what are like some massive signals that your body gives you that anybody can listen to, no matter how busy you are? And I'm not even talking about symptoms, and we don't even look at these as symptoms, but they are symptoms, right? That if you are not having a bowel movement every day in the AM, that's actually a signal that your body is giving you. If you are not getting sleep regularly and not feeling rested in the morning, that's a signal that your body is giving you. If your weight and appetite are fluctuating from day to day to day, that's a signal that your body is giving you. And I'm just talking about, like, I'm starting at the very basic tools. I'm not even going subtle. If you are a woman and your menstrual cycles are all over the place, these are like big, massive signals that anybody can listen to. And then, of course, pain, burning, any sensation of pain, any cracking, achy sounds in your body, any burning sensations that you experience, those are also signals that your body is giving you. And but I think the first thing that goes off for people is the clock, is the sleep, is the bowel movements, is the menstrual cycles, is the moods, it's the appetite. If any clock is off, any rhythm is off in your body, right, that is a big sign of an imbalance that is starting in your system. It's like this, right? Here, I live in New York, and if it starts snowing in the summer, we are going to be concerned. We're going to be like this, even though in a short term, nobody really, like, it makes no difference or inconvenience to one day, oh, there's snow, I'll have to shovel, but we know inherently, oh, like something is going on. If the rhythm of this planet is going wrong, something drastic is going to happen. And that's how we should treat our bodies. And I'm not saying we should be paranoid, but because the way to get back is not that difficult, it is. And this is what the book offers. The way to get back into your clocks are not that difficult. But that's the first big sign. And that when those go off and people don't pay attention, then they'll see suddenly there's pain, there's burning, there's indigestion, all of those things in various parts of their body. And then that can become a full-blown disease. But you go back to listening to your body by studying and understanding these clocks, by systematically, lovingly bringing back your body to that inner climate where it thrives the most.
Nidhi, and this is one question I love to ask anybody who's into, talking about
Yeah.
traditional wisdom, is that do you think or do you believe that our body has the power to heal itself?
I would say it depends on, just being very, very honest, I think it depends on how far the imbalance is, right? Like Ayurveda beautifully says, one of the first things it teaches you is that a disease is sadhya or asadhya, which means is it treatable? Is it not treatable? If it's sadhya, is it kruchra sadhya, or is it difficult to treat? If it's untreatable, is it yapya? Can you just maintain the state? So it talks about all of this, and it defines, it's beautiful. It defines exactly when it's sadhya, if it's a new disease, if it is in this part of your body, it's easier. If it's an old, so it gives you that detail, right? But even from our experience, and if I did not, let's say, read that, I would say that your body, just like the planet, when the climate is right, and not too much damage of the hardware is done, which means your organs and everything, you've not done too much damage, and you reset the climate, life wants life. I mean, I am just always fascinated with 4.5 billion years on the planet. Life created life. We evolved into 83 trillion species. We didn't have to do much, to be honest with you. When we started doing much is when life started getting threatened. So from single cell organisms, we became like these full blown species. So life is hungry for life. And I fundamentally believe it. And I believe that in our body, we carry so much life, microbiome, trillions of microorganisms that are working for us every single day and as microbiome. And you give them the climate that they need, and they will want you to come back to health. But if the hardware is overly damaged, if your organs and all of those things, it can become a little harder depending on where it is. I do believe in quantum science and quantum physics, and I have seen people heal through the shift of their energetic patterns, and as a result, shift of their neurochemistry, and as a result, shift of their biology. That can also happen. So we have so many ways to get at it at a 3D physical level, at a psychosomatic level, at a spiritual level. There are so many ways to heal the body. And the body wants you to live. Life is hungry for life. So I believe that.
You know, I'll take a cue from what you just said. Life is hungry for life. Uh, and I want to dive deeper into this concept of the gut. Now,
Mhm.
one of the phrases, if I remember correctly, that you have used in the book is we digest life, not just food. Is that correct?
I don't even know if I've used that, but I mean, we have to digest our emotions, our processes, all of those.
So what does that mean? I mean, we digest life, not just food. What would it mean to you? And how can people begin to notice the emotional root of their gut imbalances?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. So,
it's examination season. I mean, people, their gut goes for a toss during examination out of fear, stress, etc. So, what do you have to say about this?
So examination sits, that's the easy stress of life because it's a very acute stress. It'll come and it will go, right? But people have trauma, people have real life situations, and you're right. And we experience this even if you're stuck in traffic or when your examiner, we're talking about exam season. So I'm going to talk about the examiner is walking down your aisle and giving your paper when you're about to click. Nowadays, it's all digital. So when you're about to click and see the questions, right? We feel it in the body. We see the change in the chemistry, the neurochemistry, that the breath changes. There's probably heat in the chest. There's a queasiness. Sometimes people actually feel a tummy, queasiness in their gut. So you know that your chemistry is changing. You can feel it. And neurochemicals changing are going to affect the biology. What is circulating in your blood is different. What your organs are drinking and getting fed is different, for the lack of better, just to keep it easier. This is the terminology I'm using. And it's going to change, it's going to change your health. And you feel it first in your gut, right? Because that's where, these neurotransmitters, your endocrine system first says, stops activity in the gut, says, stop resting, stop digesting. There's emergency. I need to pump stuff out for other organs, other systems in the body. So that's the reason why the gut feels it. Because when we're not doing anything and when we're in rest stage, the body wants to repair and digest. When we're at ease, the body wants to digest. So digestion stops first anytime the mind goes to another emergency. But then also this happens with life processes. So let's just say exam is done and it happened. But there are other life processes and micro triggers and macro triggers as we go through life. And processing them would mean that starting to feel safe with them, right? I want to give you an example. When I was younger and I had to go for a shot, if I ever had to take a shot, right? Oh my God, it was like a devastating experience. I would be screaming, and even before they would put the needle in. So here I have not processed this physical pain of the needle. The pain is actually not that much, but there is like this trigger associated with what is about to happen. At some point, I had this massive accident in my hand, and lo and behold, I had to take multiple shots, like several times. And then I had to develop a system of just breathing through it. And today I've delivered babies without flinching, without screaming, because I had to learn to start feeling safe in that experience. And that is processing something that felt unsafe through my breath, through my safety, through just any tools that I like to use to start feeling safe. So I'm not saying that we have to feel safe with trauma, but all I'm saying is that we all carry micro and macro triggers and trauma. And there's sometimes the work is when we are revisited by anything which is like that, right? That how do you learn to use your breath, use any other tools that you like to start letting it feel safe in the body. And once it starts feeling safe in the body does its own processing. The nervous system will do its own processing and will flush it out, and it will no longer be a carried trigger for you. So for me, I think the best example that I use is how from somebody who could not get any shot, like looking at a needle was a problem, to like being able to deliver babies, to just learning how to be safe with that experience.
And I think, you were talking about the 21-day rituals in the book. Can you walk us through one of the 21-day rituals that probably could have an immediate and the most immediate impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So
And something
without,
that a listener,
sorry.
something that a listener could start trying tomorrow morning.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to be smart. I'm going to give you more, but I'm actually going to give you just one big one. So because many of the 21-day rituals have like, early lunch, heavy lunch, light dinner, early dinner, and actually works through your day and reconfiguring your day when you exercise, how you eat, etc. But the one that is the most effective is day one, and that anybody can start at any point without having to reconfigure your day even, and it makes a massive difference, will reconnect you to your body's intelligence. And that is this, that every time you eat, you pick up the spoon and then you place it back down while you're chewing your food. Keep your hands on your lap. So if you're eating from your hand and making a bite of roti, then put your hands down on your lap. And then you chew. I'm not saying chew slow. I'm not saying chew fast. Just chew. But before you swallow, you notice the texture of your food. Just notice the texture and then you swallow. And before you go and pick back that second bite, you want to make sure that you've taken an exhale through the nose. It's not a loud exhale, you're not doing Kapalbhati here, but a very casual, subtle exhale through the nose before you, because most people don't realize we are actually holding all our muscles up, diaphragm up, and people are eating like that. But I don't even want you to think so much. I tell people, keep your mind out of the equation. Just take it like a prescription. This is the one time I'm like, just take it like a prescription, because the mind is very complicated when it comes to our relationship with food. You can never use mind to heal from food. But you take a, so I'm going to repeat it again, 3 steps. Take a bite, put your hands down in your lap, make sure you notice the texture before you swallow. And before you pick up that second bite, while you're doing it, you want to make sure you've taken a nasal exhale. I cannot even tell you what a game changer this is. It is going to increase satiety. It puts your body in the parasympathetic mode. So your nervous system is relaxed. Your body is optimizing digestion. You automatically feel fuller much sooner. Somebody else, I actually heard some other research being saying that this actually, something similar to this, activates your natural GLP-1 response. And somehow your cravings stop, because our cravings only happen, unhealthy cravings happen when you're not feeling settled in your nervous system. But when you eat like this, your nervous system is so settled, you actually somehow, like I hear all my clients be like, I don't crave this anymore. I feel so satisfied for a long time. It heals you at a really, really deep level.
Yeah, I think I had the internet glitch for a moment. Uh, Nidhi, the other thing, I want to delve upon is sleep. How does one try and get, or what are the Ayurvedic rituals one can practice to be able to truly sleep better? uh, you know, uh, and I'm not talking of just taking rest. It's not about just lying down, trying to close your eyes. Uh, what is it that one could do to truly have a restful, good sleep?
Okay, so I'm going to give you like the whole list very quickly of all the things that are part of it. And not everybody will do everything. But the couple of things that everybody must do is, at some point, at some age, in your life, caffeine after 3 p.m. is going to damage your sleep patterns. It's not going to make because it actually, it does not let you build sleep pressure. It masks adenosine, which kind of builds sleep pressure, and then it does not build sleep pressure. And at certain age, anybody becomes sensitive to caffeine. There are people who say, hum 2 coffee pee ke so jate hain, but your body is not actually getting the same rest. So no caffeine after 3 p.m., no eating heavy, spicy dinners. Save your taste for lunch. Dinner is sattvic. Eat dinner like a monk, eat lunch like a worldly person. So lunch is sansari, dinner is sannyasi, always. Okay. So I think without that, any tips that I give you will be artificial hacks, because those are the most important. Now, of course, we all know the blue lights, we all know dimming the lights, we know all of that. So I'm just going to give you directly, I'm going to cut all of that, the no being on the cell phone, and avoiding blue lights, dimming the lights in your phone, in your home. I'll avoid all of that to just come to listening to evening ragas can help your nervous system make that shift very effectively. You want to keep your room slightly cooler. And I know that basically I'm asking you for artificial air, because today the air is so, we're so affected unless you have a really good fan. But the room should be a little bit cooler. I myself don't sleep in air conditioning when I come to India, but whatever. You want a fan that really works well, and you want a heavier blanket, even in the summers, because you need the guru guna to actually, for your nervous system to rest. You want to wash your feet before, and if you can, and this is very effective, you want to massage your feet with either a little bit of ghee that really grounds your nervous system, or with brahmi taila or magnesium oil or anything. Even if you don't have anything, a regular oil, but you want to massage your feet, all the nerve endings, all the meridian endings, according to traditional Chinese medicine, they all come to the feet. And that really grounds, but brings all of that noise down there to the bottom. So that, and then of course, don't slip. So either wear socks or wipe it off. Uh, if you want to consume something, drinking a warm cup of milk. Milk is a tranquilizer. As babies, that's what put us to sleep. Warm cup of milk with cardamom or nutmeg. I prefer cardamom. Nutmeg is a little bit more potent. Good for occasional use. Cardamom you can use on a daily basis, not a problem at all. Elaichi. So you basically, I think these are plenty, honestly. And then if you wake up at the same time and you try to go to bed around the same. I'm not saying that clock very quickly. And those are really great suggestions to go to sleep. Of course, there are other things that you can do with your breath. There's a certain type of exhalation, putting the palate up, relaxing ujjayi breathing. They all really go a long way to get you to sleep. But then I can write a book on sleep, but this is a great place to start.
Nidhi, I lost you in the last part. So if you can repeat the last part that you were talking. Uh, After you said that, you put on your socks so that you don't slip. उसके बाद का part, if you
Yeah,
can.
so you want to put on. Yeah. I'll just say some things might be repeating, but they get repeated, but you can edit it. So you want to put on your socks so you don't slip. If you want to drink something, a warm cup of milk with either elaichi or nutmeg, I prefer elaichi. It's less, you can drink it for a longer period of time. And there are other things that you can do with your breath, I mean, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but ujjayi breath, long nasal exhales, relaxing your jaw so that your tongue is up on the palate. Like there's a deep science to breath and sleep as well, and that's a whole different conversation. But I just feel like there are so many tools for sleep, and the more you do, the more fun it is. Just how you have morning rituals. Nighttime is such a great opportunity to repair and be actually prepared for the day. We don't take enough advantage of it.
And Nidhi, how does Ayurveda explain things like anxiety, irritability, burning? Because, I understand that along with gut sleep, the mood is an extremely important thing for you to be feeling joyful.
You will be surprised that very early on in the Ayurvedic texts, when they talk about, causes of, for example, vata. Vata is this kind of scattered wind experience in your body where everything becomes more mobile and drier than it should be. So when they talk, we have three doshas, vata is one of them. When it talks about causes of vata, it talks about chintya, scattered thoughts, anxiety. That when a thought is in motion, and you cannot lower the motion on that thought, it picks up even more speed. And as it picks up even more speed, everything in your body picks up speed. Your nervous system becomes very active, your gut kind of, and we see people who suddenly have anxiety can have a big bowel movement. We have like this shokaja atisar, bhayaja atisar, which means that you got really scared, you had a panic attack, and then people had a big bowel movement. And students tell you this in college, during exams, that can happen to people. So Ayurveda talks about that. It talks about anger and how it heats up and inflames your body. It talks about depression and withdrawal and grief and how it can slow down your body. So it tells you, it goes into various emotions and how it will change the functioning of your body, which today neuroscientists are discovering the same exact thing. So anxiety, bloating, dryness, insomnia, they're all one family. Anger, inflammation, response to the sun, acidity, sharp tongue, same family. Depression, sedentary life, sluggishness, stagnation, withdrawal, same family.
And Nidhi, I remember you and I were talking, and you mentioned something about optimum climate method.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that is?
Okay, I'll explain it. That is like a whole podcast of its own, but I love talking about it, so I will. But the premise is that when the climate is right, life will thrive. And we know this because if you want to grow tomatoes in Alaska, you cannot grow tomatoes in Alaska. The climate is not right. But if, most vegetation, every species that you see on the planet actually just was a result of the optimum environment. right? So our body houses trillions of microbiome, like microorganisms, today called microbiome, which scientists are realizing are really responsible for our life, whether it's your gut, your skin, your nervous system, your hormones. They realize, oh my God, microbiome is imbalanced, like body is imbalanced, right? So they're species, they're life. You want to give them the right climate. And when their climate is right, they will just do the work. You don't have to do anything. And so this idea that what is the optimum climate? So my work goes into understanding that optimum climate, and I'll say it very well, I'll say it in a way that people can understand quickly. Is the right climate in our body, just like our breath. If you were to exhale into your cup your hands and exhale into your cupped hand, is warm and moist. Our blood, as warm-blooded mammals, is warm and moist. The mother's milk is warm and moist. Our reproductive fluids are warm and moist. The probiotic environment, which was earlier known as flora and fauna, and where does flora and fauna exist on the planet? Where it's warm and moist. If it's hot and humid, there'll be parasites and mosquitoes. If it's cold and dry, it's going to be like a desert. What kind of people do we like? Warm people. Nobody ever teaches us. What are our comfort foods? Khichdi, soups, warm and moist. What do we like our room to be? We don't like it to be very cold. We don't like it to be very hot. Here in the US or like in India, 21 degrees Celsius or 19 degrees, that's warm. And you don't like it to be overly dry. You don't like it to be sticky. You like it to be moist, right? That's why we moisturize our skin. Human beings gravitate towards warm and moist all across the board. It is where all the three doshas are in the state of perfect balance. When you look at Vata and what it does, when you look at Pitta and what it does, and when you look at Kapha and what it does, and if Ayurveda says that balance is when these three doshas are in balance, I tried to study what is that climate when Vata, Pitta, Kapha are not in balance. That climate is warm and moist. When I look at traditional Chinese medicine, and I say, where is that where yin and yang meet? That center point of yin and yang, it is warm and moist. I looked at every tradition and I said, oh my God, knowingly, unknowingly, directly, indirectly, they were coming to warm and moist. Emotions like love, gratitude, compassion, like love is warm, compassion is warm and moist, gratitude is warm and moist, anger is hot, depression is sluggish, stress is hot and dry, anxiety is too dry. So warm and moist is what human beings are coming. In Ayurveda, that's brilliant, right? We start our cooking with warming oil or warming ghee and putting spices in it. We're doing warm and moist right there. The process of fermentation, which is like this big deal, so good for the for your gut. Fermentation is nothing but activating the warm and moist because it's a multiplication of bacteria. It's an aerobic process. It is a warm and moist process. So anyways, the book goes back into that climate and it kind of goes systematically into every area of your life, your food, your exercise, your relationships, your mindset, and gives you a lens to start examining what is not warm and moist and how to bring it back to warm and moist.
This is fantastic, and you were right. I mean, this calls for a separate podcast, and I promise that we'll make it happen. Uh, Nidhi, after listening to discussion around the gut, the mood, the optimum climate, uh, you know, if someone right now listening to our conversation is feeling overwhelmed by their health, something that they had never ever realized earlier, uh, maybe poor digestion, mood swings, sleepless nights, what's the very first compassionate step that they must take or they could take today?
Yeah. And the first thing I want to tell them is that, listen, your body wants to heal. Your body loves you. It's carried you for so long. And the first thing you want to do is just start living according to the cycle of the sun and the moon, which means time pe utho, wake up at a reasonable hour when the sun is rising. 6:37 is a good time for India at least. Eat a warm small breakfast like our ancestors did. If every tradition, every blue zone in the world where people lived for 100+ years, they ate a nice small warm breakfast. Eat a big lunch because the sun is high, your digestive fire is the highest at that point. Scientists are coming back from making a full U-turn from the biggest breakfast. Breakfast is small, warm, moist. have your porridge, have your laddu, have your upma, no problem. I have a nice big lunch, indulge at lunch, do whatever, eat it lovingly, eat it with the spoon down method that I talked about in the beginning. Eat a small dinner. Without electricity 100 years ago, we didn't even have these massive big dinners. We were not lighting, lamps and at 8:30 hosting dinner parties. Eat at 6:30. Eat like the Jains, eat at 6:30. Keep it small. Keep it like a sannyasi, and then go to bed by 9:30, 10. Just do that. Just do this much for like 12 days. Out of an entire life of how many days, even this 1 year, 365 days, we can all take 10, 12 days out. Just start there. I know that even in 5 days, you'll be able to notice a difference. And keep all your foods cooked, fresh, loving. It's very possible in India. And more than anything, just like believe in the power of your body, believe in the love it's given you and it continues to give you and it has the desire to give you.
Nidhi, you've been practicing now this in US. That's where you live. Are most of your clients from the US? And if they are, how difficult is it to explain Ayurveda in a Western land? Uh, if you can share about the acceptance and adherence, because maybe people are excited, they come to you, they want to understand Ayurveda, but do they actually adhere to what Ayurveda suggests?
Yeah. So I will say that most of my clients are not from India. They're very, maybe 5% from India, but I do have a lot of people from India reaching out. I may not end up working with everybody because it's just time zone difference. Uh, a lot of NRIs and a lot of NRIs and a lot of non-Indians around the world. I will say that Ayurveda is the science of life, right? So it's just the word is Ayurveda, but somebody teaches you the science of life about how the sun operates and the moon operates and the climate inside your body. And when Ayurveda is taught in this language, they may come to me initially with like, oh, like I want to know my dosha and I want to know how to use turmeric and I want to know. And I said, I'm not your person. If this is what you want to learn, I'm not your person. But what I can teach you is the science of life, of very life. Whether you're living in Timbuktu or Tokyo, like I said, wherever you could be living, gravity is gravity. As long as the earth is going to rotate around its axis and do revolutions around the sun, it's going to be the same. The science of life is not going to change. And my work personally is to bring that science of life to the global world, teaching them its real essence. And people love it. People are fascinated because it's internalized. It's something your logical brain can see. If it was information that I would be giving them in from the Ayurvedic texts, it would stay in the front of their brain and it would be flushed out. It's very difficult. Information is just, you have to memorize it. But when you learn something through an experience and connection and awe and wonder, it stays with you. You don't have to work to, like if you're cold, it's very natural for you if you have a blanket to just put it around because it's an experience. It's a lived experience. It doesn't feel like, oh, I'm feeling cold, let me Google what I should do. Should I use my blanket or should I use my heater? Like you know it. So it's so easy for you to live that way. So I like to teach Ayurveda that way. And people embrace it. How much people really embrace it. What the challenge is for people to cook fresh. And that's kind of non-negotiable for me, that at least cook on the same day. But I do help with people then. I say, okay, it's okay to use your Instant Pot, which is this electric cooker that the US now has. I'll give them easier recipes. And I'm like, if you're eating light dinner, half the battle is won anyways. You're just cooking like a stew for dinner.
So, Nidhi, this is just a very beautiful conversation. I think I can probably go on for another 2 hours just coming and asking you things that are contextualized to my own life. But, there are two or three things that actually are the very powerful takeaways beyond just the tacticals that need to be done. One is to understand that scripts that are there, the scriptures, are about principles and not prescriptions. They're principles that define life, and prescriptive is around those principles. This is something that you spoke of in the initial part of the conversation. Second is, what you very powerfully brought out was when you were talking about that we have lost living in the rhythm. Yeah, I remember you using this word, and we need to take control, uh, not just take control, but kind of realign wisdom uh, and how it is to be preserved when you're talking about Ayurveda. And the third thing, which is extremely powerful, is that we need to bring in some level of consciousness, mindfulness around how we live so that, we are not just looking at external things affecting us, but we internalize our thoughts so that we are able to listen to our body, we understand what it is saying, and then we accordingly respond to what our body wants as an action from us, and is seeking out through its own voice. uh, so this has been a very, very grounding conversation, and I think your work reminds us that healing is not always that something that needs to be kind of chased. Uh, we just need to return to ourselves. Uh, so, Nidhi, all I can say is thank you for taking time to speak with us. Thank you for being the vessel of Ayurveda as you said that you desire to be. So, what a beautiful conversation. Thank you, Nidhi.
Thank you so much for all your honest and deep questions. I've so enjoyed this.